As of the filming of this video, we have Sun and Mars at the highest degrees of Scorpio, which, not gonna lie, has created a lot of heavy, intense, and just really off feeling vibes. This has been an absolutely wild deep dive into our masculine and feminine balance. And because it's Scorpio energy, it can really have a charge of finger pointing and look at all the harm the masculine has caused in this world. And I don't deny that that is a significant part of this. However, I wanted to address a little bit about both the individual and collective energies that a lot of us are feeling right now as we move through this rough patch of evolution. If you identify as a person who fears conflict and confrontation, specifically with masculine energy, and maybe has codependently people-pleased the masculine for a couple of centuries, I can relate. I've recently discovered that I am actually deathly afraid of men having their big emotions. As someone who's done a good amount of connection with my own past lives, masculine emotion and masculine aggression has literally killed me lifetime over lifetime. So the fear is very real, it's very palpable, and it's not directly related to specific situations I even get into in this life. It is a deeply rooted fear and program. However, what I suspect is that men themselves fear their big emotions. This can come from their innate warrior energies, because not knowing or having the tools to process emotions have literally created war and killed people century after century, and it's still going on today. So as a result of men not knowing what to do with their intense emotions, they have essentially created the structure of our earthly society devoid of feeling. They have surgically removed emotion from virtually every control system that exists on this planet currently. They have structured the world with such a stranglehold and control, squeezing the emotion out of it, that we literally cannot breathe. Our world is devoid of emotion. So meanwhile, the polarity of that is the current rising goddess energy. And as that pushes up individually within us and collectively, it is bringing our human emotion back into the conversation. Compassion, empathy, healing, coping mechanisms, inner child, heart-centeredness, love. That will be ultimately what rebalances society and humanity. Teaching masculine how to process their big feelings is an important part of how we break codependent patterns and programs. Now, traditionally, men are not taught to process their emotions adequately. They are desperately in need of coping skills. Masculine energy by nature is outward focused, while feminine energy is inward focused. So it's a huge skill for masculine to be introspective about themselves. And this is something that the feminine can bring to the table naturally, and something that's happening little by little as a result of the rising goddess energy within us and collectively. This rebalance will help the masculine and assist with evolution, because then the masculine can go out and rebuild our systems and structure in support of emotional health. And this is both through as well as in support of the rising divine feminine energies. Now, thirdly, men need their inner children. I think a lot of men, especially millennials and Gen Z, they tend to hold tightly on to their childhood hobbies. Video games, Marvel, Star Wars, things that brought them joy in their childhood. Now, this inherently is pretty pure. It's actually a good thing. However, it can also be used as an escapist defense mechanism for not actively dealing with the restructuring that our world needs. And honestly, have a little compassion here, because who can really blame them? Who wouldn't really want to hide from the embarrassments of what has been created within this world? The war, the capitalism, the hustle culture, relationships as a need for literal survival for the feminine. If I was a Gen Z dude, I would clutch on to my Star Wars as well. It is an escape method that is keeping them attached to the innocence of their childhood. Men just have to learn how to acknowledge that, and at the same time, empower themselves to be warriors of the new dynamic, rather than addictively staying in the comfort zone of their childhood. Masculine feels so responsible for the brokenness of the world that they are seeking out an escape through the inner child, which is pretty opposite to what happens in feminine energy with the inner child. Usually that's more about creating a safe space for the inner child where they won't get hurt, but trapping it away and detaching from it as a result. So the feminine is once again being asked to find compassion and forgiveness. But we can't do that superficially. It has to happen energetically. You can't just say, oh, we forgive you. It's something we actually have to live out within our own energy. Because the divine nature of feminine goddess energy is in receiving, we have to grant forgiveness and compassion to the masculine through doing it within ourselves. It's an inside job. We have to first forgive our own inner masculine, and there's two ways that we can go about doing that. The first is by raising our own self-worth. And by doing so, we are essentially decentralizing the masculine from the story. This allows us to better embrace our rising goddess energies. But in order to do that, secondly, we have to forgive the parts inside of us that denied that goddess feminine energy to begin with, because everything we see in the outside world is a projection of what's going on within us. So if we see a world where emotion and feminine energy has been essentially removed from the equation, chances are that most of us have been doing that within ourselves as well. So we need to identify that, and most importantly, have compassion and forgive ourselves for it. Because a lot of that was done in unconsciousness. We didn't know what we were doing. And while that was happening, the masculine just went out and built these systems to try and keep us safe, but essentially trapping the feminine and hiding her away. By accepting and embracing our inner goddess, we are teaching the masculine acceptance and forgiveness through our lived experience. So some may be thinking, why would we do that? In a lot of cases, the feminine is still pretty pissed. And rightfully so. There is righteousness in that anger. That anger will serve a purpose as what not to do in the future. There's nothing inherently wrong with being angry about it. However, it's important not to get stuck in the anger, because that just inhibits our evolution. We have to feel it, embrace it, understand it, bring conscious awareness to it, and then bring our goddess energy to it by loving it, feeling compassion and understanding, and helping heal it within us. Because the bigger picture goal is sacred union, reconnecting masculine and feminine energies, both within us and ultimately collectively. That starts as an inside job. By repairing the inner bond that we have between our own inner masculine and feminine and the divinity within that, we repair the balance within us first, which ultimately heals the collective consciousness from the inside out. And finally, it's important to remember that there is a part of this wounded masculine energy that doesn't feel like it deserves compassion or forgiveness. And that too is very reasonable, considering where we are as a society right now. But as the goddess returns to us, she has limitless ability to tap into her emotional capacity to forgive, her emotional capacity to hold space. And while we cannot do this for the masculine, we can hold space for their process. As we forgive the masculine, they learn to forgive themselves. Bringing forgiveness, empathy, compassion, heart-centered love back into the equation is what will heal this on a larger scale. That in itself is the rise and trust in the feminine. It may seem insignificant now, based on where we are, based on what's happening in the world, because we're so far apart from each other and the world seems so fucked up, and we have to hold space and compassion for that as well. This is a process, but the coming together of polarities is what sparks creation. It is where healing and being future forward births new worlds. We really have that manifestation power within us. So we can hang on to the anger, and many of us will, until we've had more cycles of healing. But don't you want to be part of the evolutionary healing of our consciousness right now? Because that's what's on offer. It's all available right now within you. So let it flow, because it won't stop. I am so excited to announce that I will soon be opening up a very limited number of spots for my individualized life purpose blueprint. To be the first to know when I open the list, follow, like, or comment, and as an added bonus and first access, find the link in my bio to my guided chakra meditation, designed to expand your consciousness and move through the perceived limitations of our dense 3D reality. I would love to continue exploring this infinite reality with you, and thanks so much for your presence. And let it flow, because it won't stop.